Hello and welcome to the Authentic Wednesday podcast. Each week, my guest and I share our vulnerable behind-the-scenes stories of giving ourselves permission to take off our masks, let go of expectations, and embrace our own path of freedom and authentic connection. I'm your host, Bianca Hughes, a lover of authenticity and a licensed professional counselor in Georgia. Hello and welcome to the Authentic Wednesday podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. It is me solo today. And if you are someone who is realizing you're attached to things or has worked through being attached to things or just want someone else to relate to in regards to being attached to things, circumstances, then this podcast episode is for you. Recently, I have been journaling and working through money shame. Now, I personally define money shame as not being where I desire to be financially or where I thought I would be financially at this age. I want to say money shame has nothing really to do with how much money you make, more than so the expectations that you have of yourself and perhaps you're not meeting them. And so for mine, it's being in debt, and specifically, I would say more credit card debt. I do have a mortgage and I do have student loans. They don't bother as much, but it is the credit card debt. I think for me, I've come out of credit card debt, gone back in, and having a hard time coming back out. And so that's where the shame comes in for me personally. But I have found that it is enhanced by my expectations, me not seeing abundance and what I do have, and me not being grateful for what I do have. And so in this journey, I'm just kind of journaling through it. There is no process. It's just working through. And I realized that if I wasn't attached to what I think I should look like or be like financially, then it probably wouldn't be as hard or as shaming. I'm not saying it wouldn't be difficult, but I just don't think the shame would be. So I'm definitely working on letting go on some of the expectations. And when I say attached, what I mean is holding on to my own imagination, holding on to what perhaps other people are doing and looking at other people, especially if they're my age or even younger, of course. And then worrying about what perhaps other people think of me or how they perceive me money-wise or where I should be money-wise. And to be honest, people probably really don't care. And so that's what, I have personally become attached to. I just want you to kind of think about this. I have learned to let go of different types of attachments. I'll just share some of the attachments that I personally have, and you will find that they're desires or maybe you can relate. So being attached to success, what success looks like for me, of course, and what success looks like for you is different. And so I know also some people could look at me and feel like I'm very successful, but if I get caught up in my own stuff, it may not seem that way. A big one I can get attached to is outcomes, that things are meant to happen just easily or perfectly or this way, or people are meant to say this, or people are meant to respond to me in this type of way. I can get attached to fear of rejection. And what that means is when I go out and try something new, if I'm attached to the fear of rejection, then I'm going to think about that. I'm going to think about that as the outcome. And that could even hold me back from doing something because I'm attached to the fact that someone's going to reject me, whether that be doing a new program, going out to speak to someone. If I'm so consumed and holding on to this attachment that someone's going to reject me, then that gets in the way. That's a form of attachment. Routines, being attached to routines. They could be simply the way you drive to work. I mean, I can drive a different way and see a whole different world, right? There's attached to, I know some people who go on holiday, or shall I say vacation, and some people have to have a spreadsheet, and then some people are just free flowing. I'm definitely the free flowing person, but I could be attached to my free flowing and not realize that sometimes I actually do need to plan a bit because maybe there's something that I want to see. Attached to the idea, I know this is for me, life with no problems. Attached to the idea that one day I will just not have to deal with any problems. I can definitely relate to that. Sometimes I really react and get frustrated when problems come my way because I think they shouldn't be there. But that's not reality. That's not life. There are problems in life. Another big one, as we're talking about money shame, life with no bills. Like every month I get a bill and I'm like, oh, another one? Like that's not going to happen. If I'm living and I'm using things, then clearly I need to pay for it. And so another one is life without bills. Sometimes I just think, when will this ever end? And the reality is it's not going to end. But I'm attached in some form of way. There's a part of me that believes or hopes that it will. And so that feeds into some of the disappointment that I experience. Attached to the fact that I will not make the same mistake. I think that with this money shame, that's a big one, right? Going back into credit card debt after coming out of it, or not being wise with my spending. And knowing I'm not being wise with my spending and still spending badly, and then realizing what I did and be like, oh my God, I did it again. And I think the shame comes from not only doing it again, not only knowing I know better, but not realizing, oh my God, how did I get caught up in that? You know, the expectation is that it's never going to happen again. I'm never going to make that mistake again. Attached to limitations. Sometimes I can limit myself and my own believing because I want to feel safe and I don't really want to experience fear. But when I put limits on myself, I don't really benefit, and nor does anyone else. I have so many gifts and things to share with the world. So if I limit what I can do, people don't benefit and I don't benefit. I don't get to experience giving it to other people because there's so much joy in giving and sharing. Oh, here's another one. Attached to family interactions. I think family is awesome. I love my family. I think I'm also guilty of sometimes still being attached to how perhaps my family was or how I'd like them to be in my head. Not saying that my family's perfect. No one is. But maybe some of the ideas we see on TV, maybe some of the interactions we see on TV, because I have not lived with my family and been around them for the last almost 14 years living in America, that I think sometimes I can actually I will take ownership. I am guilty of still having the view and expectation of them of who they were when they left. And they're not the same, and neither am I. And I don't like it when people still have the same expectations of me to be the same as I was 14 years ago. And so that's not fair, but I'm attached for that. I guess that's familiar. I guess that's comfortable. And so that's something I have to let go. Another one that I'll share with you is that has really in the past and even sometimes today is attaching myself to what it means to be Christian. What I mean by that is, I think before I was very attached to the rigidness of you have to pray every morning for a certain amount of time, then read a devotional, then read your Bible, and then leave. And all of those things are good, but for me, there are other ways I've experienced God, especially in nature, as well as in prayer, as well as in music, as well as in other people, and experience Him not just being in me, but around me and surrounding me, and seeing the greatness of Him in my every single day, simple as seeing the sun, or being attached to perhaps I have to stay at the same church forever, or being attached to perhaps I just have to go to this one church and I can't see any others, or being attached to the fact that no one else can speak the word or preach like my pastor. Being attached to that is definitely something that I have done and realized. And even just this past weekend, I was just having a hard time, like we're talking about the money shame, and it was making me feel discouraged. And I remember sitting in I have a new prayer room that I made, and sitting in there and just lying in there, not wanting to read or pray or anything. But I felt such a peace, because it's kind of like when you have a loved one or a family member or friends that you can just be with and be silent, and just the fact that they're there in their presence, that is healing in itself. And so not being attached to it, I have to go in this prayer room and just pray or read the word, but I can just go in there and just sit and still feel peaceful. That is one thing I have realized about not being attached to what it means to be Christian, but just letting God lead the way and be open to that. And so I want you to think about all those things that I named. Imagine yourself walking in your favorite place Mine is the beach. So it could be a location in the world. It could be the beach. It could be your house. It could be down the street. Just your favorite place to be. And then imagine all those things that I mentioned, if they relate to you, or you can add other ones if you want. So mines are success, money, dreams, outcomes, fears of rejection, family interaction, routines, what it means to be Christian, life with no problems, life with no bills, I will not make another mistake, how things should be, and limitations. And of course, that's not even an extensive list. So if you relate to those, think of those and then think of your others. You can write down and imagine that all those things are attached to you. All those words are attached to your leg. They're attached to your eyes. They're attached to your hands. They're attached to your stomach, to your legs, to your hair. If you have no hair, to your head. They're attached to every single part of you, just covering you. And now you are walking down your favorite place. Can you even see? Can you enjoy it? Is the anxiety and worry and weight stopping you from enjoying your favorite place? Mine is the beach. If I had all those things, I wouldn't be able to see the beach or the sea. My head would be somewhere else. I wouldn't be present. I would be walking on the sand, but not really walking on the sand. What's happening to you with all of those things attached to you? It prevents me from seeing, enjoying, being present, joy, and laughter. It makes me feel sad, anxious, worried. I begin to isolate, get insecure because these things don't feel good. They don't make me feel like I'm me. And so that's probably one of the reasons I'd isolate. Do you isolate? Think about the opportunities you could be missing with all of these things that you're attaching to, or shall I say all the things are attached to you. Nothing else can attach because you've got all these other things attached to you. It doesn't leave room for opportunities. You become even controlling, right? All these attachments, we become controlling. I know I become controlling, especially with that fear of rejection and things wanting to be a certain way and not being open to opportunities. I then become controlling. Write down what comes to mind after this imagination exercise, the feelings, the thoughts. What do you want to do next? How much are your attachments impacting your dreams? I want to challenge you to letting go of one thing that you are attached to. It could be so small. Like I mentioned, driving a certain way. Perhaps you drive a different way. If you're the driver and someone else wants to drive, perhaps you sit in the passenger seat so you can see a new view. If you're a manager, an owner, maybe it's time to delegate. Because when you delegate, you open up space for new things and new ways of doing things, and you give other people opportunities. You take the weight off of yourself. What will it look like for you if you changed your attachment? Would your dreams come true? I know for me, I felt relieved. I felt freedom. I've allowed space for creativity to come through. It's given me more time, more laughter, more joy, and just changed my vision and my perspective. It's scary letting go. It's scary when we're no longer attached to the things that we're used to. But if they're not serving your purpose, what is the reason for you holding on? I would love to hear your feedback. You can email me on podcast@biancakHughes.com. Tag me on Instagram on Authentic Wednesday Podcast. I would love for you to share and just hear about what you're holding on to, what you're attached to, and what you're willing to let go. Now, there will be some grief, and if you shed some tears, that's very normal. But there is so much joy on the other side. I'll give you a recent example. I think I may have mentioned that I did do Airbnb for 4.5 years, and I actually wanted to end it in 2020, but a situation took place and actually ended it this year. And I said to my friend, oh, it was like being in a relationship when you've stayed its course and you didn't know how much weight it had on you. I felt so relieved, so free. It was probably what brought up some more of the money stuff, being nervous about that. But it allowed me room to get more creative and be more accountable. And one of the things I found that in feeling like I never had enough money per se, I realized I really did, because I don't go hungry or anything like that, and bills were always paid. It's just perhaps not how I thought it was. For me, not being attached to outcomes and to money shame, it has enabled me to say abundance is easy and truly believe that, and open my eyes to abundance and what I do have. Now, that doesn't mean I don't want more, but I'm able to be grateful and thankful for what I do have. Thank you again so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share the podcast. Thank you so much. If you connected with what you just heard, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. You can stay connected by following our Instagram, Authentic Wednesday Podcast, and visiting our website, authenticwednesday.com. Remember, authenticity is a journey, not a destination.